Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We welcome you, whatever time and wherever in the world you are listening. We are pleased you have found us. You are now listening to Inside the Bunghole, a podcast taking you on a journey through wine. Together, we will learn more about this wonderful elixir of life. So raise your glass to welcome your hosts and partners in wine, Pam and James. You are now inside the bunghole.
Well, welcome to another episode of Inside the Bunghole, and we are absolutely thrilled to be sitting with Hitching Post entrepreneur,
hardest working person I understand in the land.
Frank Ostini.
Yes, it's Ostini, but it's Ostini.
Either way.
But it's
Either way.
Ostini.
Welcome
He doesn't care.
Welcome to Buellton.
Just don't call him late for dinner.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk to you because I think that part of your passion is the pairing food with wine.
I'm not so much of, like, this is the perfect wine to go with this perfect dish. I'm really a proponent of the wine is being made to go with food. And that's the magic and the miracle of appreciating it. And it elevates food. My family's been in the food business forever, and that was one of the things my family didn't appreciate food and wine together. And it was good food, but it I guess it didn't capture me. It didn't intrigue me. It was just good food, and we always had that. And but when I brought good wine to the table and how complex it made a meal and how social it made the dining situation, I fell in love with the whole thing. I decided I wanted to make wine real early because there was vineyards being planted here, but very few wineries. And so we got access to, I became friends with all the winemakers here. I had winemaker friends in Napa Valley, and they helped me get started. So I called all my friends and I said, hey, I want to make wine at home, and we got to pick the grapes. And they quizzed me a little bit more, and they said, you want to make like Italian rot gut homemade wine? And I'm going, no, this is fine table wine. Dry, you make it dry. It's not sweet like old homemade wines. Yeah. It goes with food, and they were going, what are you, No, nobody was interested except my partner to this day.
Wow.
Someone I barely knew at the time, Hartly, and he just said, yeah, we'll be there. He says, I'll bring the croissants. You make the coffee.
We're going to form a rock band.
We'll be at your place at 6 o'clock. And that was in 1979. Wow. And we went out and picked grapes. And we made a pretty delicious wine. We had a whiskey barrel, an old brandy barrel, that American oak brandy barrel that we put the wine in. And then I found out about this stuff called French oak. And we bought an oak barrel right at the end of the barrel aging process. Put the wine in there for 2 weeks, and it just got real oaky really quick. It turns out that we know now you put new wine in new barrels. You don't put old wine in new barrels.
Interesting.
It overpowers the wine.
Wow.
Interesting.
And there's all kinds of things we've learned. So we try to make wines that are very versatile with food. Mostly it's Pinot Noir that we think is the ultimate food wine because it has amazing fruit characters and earthy nuances and all these complexities, but it's low in tannin. It doesn't have a lot of tannin, and it has high acidity, and the acidity just cuts into food so well and makes wines be alive to go with food, and that's so important. I'm just not that good at deciding exactly what this wine goes with this certain item.
So let me ask you this, like a good Pinot Noir, because you guys are absolutely wonderful with Pinot Noirs. You've got a huge portfolio of Pinot Noirs. Will a good Pinot Noir go with a fish or a chicken just as easily as it'll go with a good steak?
I think so. Of course, you can go with lighter lighter Pinot Noirs for some of those dishes that are a little racier in character, maybe a little spicier. I'm not, and the fact that they're low in tannin makes them accessible towards fish dishes. I think, like I said, I'm not that particular about it, but I know that there's, of course, other bigger styles of Pinot Noir that might go with meat dishes more. Not that any of our Pinot Noirs are in the scale of how people make wine. They don't really approach the big side of wine because we don't make the high alcohol styles. We don't think those go very well with food, and it's always been our intention to make wines that went with food. Being a chef, I'm a chef that makes wine, and I make it for food. Everyone said in the beginning, "Why are you doing Pinot Noir?" Well, there wasn't. It was one of the best grapes available at the time. It wasn't prolific, but the vineyards that were here had really high quality, but it wasn't recognized. And we wanted to make something that was from here, local. And the Merlot was spotty. It wasn't good every year, but the Pinot seemed to be good every year. And so it was local, and there was this idea that there just wasn't very many good Pinot Noirs, and we had found something. We fell in love with it. Let's make it our house wine for the restaurant. So we did, and nobody understood it then. And everyone said you should have Cabernet for your house wine. And it turns out that, in Bordeaux, they eat lamb with Cabernet. In Burgundy, they eat beef with Pinot Noir. So there is a long tradition of eating beef with Pinot Noir, but in America, since Napa was king with Cabernet, that was the thing. And it just happened that at that time, the Cabernet from grown around here, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have it in the right place. We weren't growing it the correct way, and it wasn't very good. There was no Syrah back then planted, so that wasn't an option. And maybe if Syrah had been plentiful at that time, maybe that would have been the direction we would have gone into. I'm not sure.
It's not in the back of your mind you wanted to make wine to put in your restaurant.
Well, when I made wine, I liked wine, then I wanted to make wine. And then it became pretty obvious that if we could make it for the restaurant, we would be cutting out all the middlemen, and there was a potential to have a viable business. So that was always my intention. My partner, Gray Hartly, he always wanted a winery. He wanted a land-based business that was a little safer than being on a fishing boat in Alaska. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of an understatement. That job of fishing in Alaska is one of the most dangerous in the nation. And he did it for 30 years, and he was looking for a way out. So that was the reason we were expanding around the year 2000. He was trying to retire from fishing and be just in the wine business. I only wanted to sell wine to my restaurant and use it in my restaurant. I kind of pretend that that's all we do to this day. It's how I make wine. It's what I'm thinking about when we're making the wine, and it's what I always wanted to do. So I kind of pretend that that's what we're still doing, even though most of the wine sells it elsewhere nowadays.
Because I think. And I'm not 100% sure, but I know HP. I can get HP at my grocery store, at Albertsons.
That's right. We should take a break, but I want to talk about distribution coming up, and I would like to talk about a gentleman that wrote a book and became a movie.
Our buddy Rex.
Yeah, because that's a pinnacle in your life.
Oh, of course.
I mean, people are probably listening to this. They don't realize we are talking to
Sideways,
and part of the whole film was in Hitching Post. This gentleman right here. So
we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and find out a little bit more.
Join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!
I want to talk about your restaurant. I came to your restaurant a few years ago, and I'll get back to this. I never saw the movie Sideways. Never knew it Sideways. You know, I know Pickett that wrote Rex that wrote the book for it first and all that. But when I came into your restaurant, sight unseen, I got a table. I was lucky enough to get a table right where the fire pit was, and I can see the cook everything. And he was always looking to the left, and I thought maybe he was reading his tickets for his order. It turns out there was a Dodger baseball game on. And I saw some busboys walk by, and he would flash his finger, like letting them know what the score was. So I know there's baseball going on in the back of the kitchen. There's Dodger fans. But what really blew me, not the food being awesome, was the most simplest thing in the world was there was a relish tray that you serve on every table. Who came up with that? Or it's so old school, and you still do that.
Yeah, when my parents bought the restaurant in 1952, it was basically, the concept was there already, and it was a Midwest steakhouse from the 50s. And that stuck, and that stayed. So there was, it was the relish tray. The bay shrimp cocktail would be another item that is, old like that.
School.
A salad, an entree that had a baked potato or French fries with the protein, and then in Casmea you get ice cream for dessert and coffees included, and
it's all crackers with butter.
Yeah, that's right.
Old
and
school.
that's all one price. And we've changed it over here in Buellton. We took the dessert off and made a lot of
That's
desserts.
because you serve too much damn food.
Well, that it's an old problem with America. We're still, the portions are too big to this day. But I have to tell you, in 1952, there was one size portion. It was 20 ounces.
Wow.
And it was a big revolution that my mother talked my father into having a 10-ounce portion. We've now gone to the majority of our portions are 5 and 7 ounces. But we still get a bunch of people that order 10 or 12 or 15-ounce size steaks.
It's wonderful food. So the second time I came back, I saw the movie Sideways. And I went, oh my gosh, I've been to that place. So I got to visit back. So tell me a little bit about that turning point. You're making your wine, you have your restaurant. And there's a gentleman.
And there's this creep at the bar.
Writing stuff. He's going to make a movie or just write a book.
We can't call Rex a creep.
Right.
Gosh.
An observer.
Rex was, he would hang out at the bar after he was doing writing, and he was saying he was writing a book. And
Is he a local cat?
he's from Santa Monica. I don't know where he's living right now, but he's got wine and chili. Yeah, he was writing in a musical. There's a bunch of music made. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to be in production in Sideways as a musical. And
Really?
It's been sidetracked, like everything has been sidetracked. I suppose I haven't actually, I haven't heard from Rex for a long time, but I see him on Twitter once in a while. Anyway, he'd hang out at the bar, and I didn't really know him. Hence, I'm not written into the book. He was friends with the bartender, said he'd write him into the book, and Rex had a crush on a waitress and said he'd write her into his book, and but they never dated. Rex went away, and he came back a year later, and he flashed one of those Hollywood Reporter kind of rag newspapers, and it said that this had been sold as a screenplay. Before it was a book. He wasn't published, he couldn't get published. Just like Miles in the movie couldn't get published, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Rex couldn't get published.
Wow.
And so the screen rights sold before it was a book, before he made the book. As a matter of fact, the book may have never been published, except it was being made into a movie.
To a movie.
And so he finally got to publish it. It's it's kind of amazing that he went away, and we didn't think that was real. That it's going to be a movie. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And he went away, and we didn't know anything else until the site scouts started coming around and sniffing and asking questions, and we got wind that there was a movie going to be filmed, and that this director Alexander Payne, which I didn't know anything about him, turns out to be a magical director and has done so many good things. And I think Sideways was his third movie, and he took a break to do About Smit. He bought the rights to it, but then did About Smit because he had access to Jack Nicholson, and so was able to do that movie before. In that About Smit, he's driving through the country in a motorhome, and he goes through a little town, and there's a marquee on a theater, and it says "Coming soon, Sideways."
Oh, funny.
In About Smit.
Oh, shit, I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, and then they came and did this movie. They were here for 3 days, and it was just an amazing party. Wonderful people. They treated us like gold.
Did you have to close everything down, or you were able
We had to close for 3
Okay,
days,
okay.
and we made them pay us receipts.
Right.
They almost weren't paying for any of the site
Locations.
fees, location
Yeah.
fees,
Right.
but they understood. They really wanted us in there.
It's such an homage that they actually wanted to do it here.
It is, and I don't exactly. I know that Alexander Payne came and lived here for 6 months beforehand, and he got to check out the locations that were in the original book, and then he did the adaptation of the screenplay, and so he was able to pick exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
And some reason he really wanted this place. It was a local institution even then. We had been a family business since 1952 in Casmelia, and we moved here in 1986. And by now it's Rex was here in '98 when he was writing. And it was 2003 when they filmed. So we were established, and we had the wine program going good, and we're a popular, good restaurant and a winery, both. So I'm one of the few that I was in the beginnings of where a restaurateur would actually be a winemaker. And I'm not just, I'm a real winemaker and a chef. And I have sous chefs and executive chefs that do most of that work now. I'm still the inspiration of the kitchen and the organizer, and if anything's wrong, I help fix it. But the winery, I'm the winemaker. And Gray Hartly would be the cellar master in how you put rolls together for a winery. Winemaker thinks of what needs to be done, and the cellar master makes it happen.
James was saying over the break that you guys are kind of like Elton John and Bernie Taupin. You're the teamwork that you guys.
You make good music, but you kind of are separate in a way. You do your part, he does his part,
and when it comes together, it's magic.
Well, we each can do different things, and we're either one of us can't do it without the other one, and together it makes a lot more than what we can do by ourselves. And
were you distributed in grocery stores before the movie, or did that help?
So before the movie, our brand was a lot smaller. So we tended not to be in grocery stores, and actually, as a marketing strategy, didn't want to be in grocery stores. We wanted to be in restaurants and fine wine stores. It wasn't until later when the brand, we got in trouble like everybody in 2008, 2009,
right?
The recession,
tough times. Yep.
And it was really tough on restaurants.
Yes.
And so we were top heavy in that category. Our sales were really down. So after that, we diversified more and got to be in markets, and then still worked the restaurant thing. We had a really good distribution in Southern California that started long before the Sideways thing, and we have a long time relationship with our broker there, and they do the work. We stay out of their hair. We go there when they want us, but mostly they just want to. Our ability to market the brand has to do with having a restaurant here in Buellton that people have come to, and they would come to the restaurant and leave being fans of the wine brand. That it was a pretty simple marketing strategy that that movie Sideways really helped.
Right.
Right time, right place.
Join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!
Welcome back. We are sitting here with Frank Ostini, tomato, of Hitching Post Wines and Restaurant.
I'm going to make you taste a white wine.
Yes.
Because we're not that much of white wine makers, but we have access to some of the oldest vines in the county. This is Chenin Blanc from the Los Alamos area, the Louis Lucas vineyard, planted 40 years ago. It's not as serious as Chardonnay, but it's got a delicious roundness to it.
I love
it's dry.
I had this yesterday.
Yesterday we had it during the tasting, and it is
Awesome.
really, really good.
And this is priced so well, by the way.
Well,
It's,
I think our retail is 26. We were, it's funny, we were wanting to make white wine. Where would I get grapes? Go talk to Louis Lucas. He has some in Los Alamos.
boy, it's good. Boy, is it good. That's a home run.
We're thrilled to be able to make it, and it's fun showing it off because it's an unusual style, a barrel fermented Chenin Blanc.
They usually do it in stainless?
Yeah, it's usually in stainless, and there's usually residual sugar involved, but this is totally dry.
Yeah.
We mostly just sell it here at the tasting room because, and that's kind of why we made it, because we're red wine makers. I mean, that's just what we do. And but the tasting room needs options.
Yes.
Which is, we have another lighter style white wine called White Dahlia, which is Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon mostly. And then we made another white wine this year because my wife is really interested in having a sweet wine, slightly sweet wine for the tasting room. So we made a white Riesling, 1% residual sugar with lots of acidity that's just going to be released this spring, 2020, and it's made from the oldest vines in the county from Rancho Sisquoc, 50-year-old vines.
We did a show on Riesling just to say that, boy, people
They
need
don't
to
have to be
They
sweet.
don't have to be sweet. Rieslings are such
Yeah.
they're just great.
They're a great food wine.
Yes.
Great food
Yeah.
wine.
So, to our 3 listeners that are listening,
Thanks for listening.
your restaurant Hitching Post, right across the way, just right, in the parking lot is a tasting room, and you do a lunch. And I know you guys are on bicycles, like little adult tricycles, going back and forth and delivering. You're cooking the food at the Hitching Post and bringing it over to the tasting. And there's a little menu, a nice little lunch menu. When did you open this tasting room? Whose idea was it? And
It came up for lease in 2018, and we decided it was time to finally have a tasting room and expand. But for us, a tasting room had to have food involved, and so we were going to figure that out. And it turned out to be almost takeout style lunch, picnic style lunch. Order from here at the tasting room. We remodeled this old house, which was we don't even know how old this was. It's a beautiful old property. We found out so much about the property, that they had grown dahlia bulbs on this property and then sold them, and then the husband and wife farmers would come to buy the bulbs. The husbands would be making the deal, and the wives needed something to do, so they built a gift shop in the Hitching Post restaurant, that building having to been their house when they were in Anaheim, and they took it apart and brought it here in 23 truckloads.
Wow.
Now,
Board by board.
Board by board.
Board by board.
We will make a wine story, a wine called 23 Loads, to highlight the fact that the Hitching Post restaurant was on the site of Disneyland in Anaheim. They sold their property. It was gonna be torn down. They took it apart and moved it up here.
So a lot of the wood and the boards and the structure, part of it is from that property that sat in Anaheim, California.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the lady that owns this property and grew up in this house was born in that house. So there's quite a history, and so we try to take things like that, and we named a wine White Dahlia in honor of them growing dahlias on this property.
Changing gears, just something odd. We're going to do another pour, but I want to ask you, as you're pouring this wine, and then you can talk about the wine, but you're going to hear it pour right now. You make, I'm sure it's you, or you can correct me, this thing called magic stuff. And it's this salt, and I ran out of it, and now that I'm here, I just bought another a jar of it, and I also bought a bag of it. Tell me about the magic stuff, because I love that seasoning salt. Is that your concoction, or?
So here's the quick story.
Yeah.
So you're lucky you're talking to the chef and not the fisherman. The fisherman, you'd take you the whole show just to tell you that
about
story.
that seasoning salt.
You know, for the fishermen, the stories, not only do the fish get bigger, the stories get longer.
We get longer, right.
But that's great. So in the original recipe, my dad gets the restaurant, and you season the steak with 3 shakers. One is garlic salt, one is salt, and one is pepper.
Okay.
My brother realized that you could take the garlic salt and the salt and actually just make one shaker and have garlic salt. So we would season with garlic salt and pepper. And that's how we did it. We took the original recipe, which was really garlic, salt, and pepper, and kind of expanded it to use 3 kinds of peppers like they do in the Cajun cuisines, and added onion powder, and made our own. The red part is cayenne. Which we also use another red pepper too. That's really low in the pepper measurement.
Yeah, Schofield, the heat.
Yeah, just because in order to balance all the flavors, we need more pepper, but it didn't have to be very peppery.
Yeah.
It's great on popcorn, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's such an all-purpose seasoning. It evolves because the spices change sometimes. Especially the cayenne pepper can be really, really crazy peppery, and you got to be careful. But we're convinced that it's a balancing act, and that's what we try to make in that blend.
And the name Magic Stuff, you just called it just Magic Stuff.
We think magic stuff happens around us and what we do. I mean, just to think of what has happened, a country restaurant that my parents got. We opened a second location over here, focused in, let's grow the wine business, and that starts to happen around here, and then that thing sideways happens.
Yeah.
The whole thing explodes
It is
up.
magical.
It's magic stuff.
It's magic stuff.
Do you feel like an artist, like a musician, hears a song on the radio? Do you feel like if you're out of town somewhere in a grocery store and you walk and you see your bottle of wine, is it like hearing your song on a radio in a way? Is there a weird feeling like that? Like, oh my God, that's me. I'm many miles away from my home, and there's a product of me here.
So, having grown up in a business where people come to us and we see them experience what we do, the wine translates to going elsewhere so much more, and we get a great thrill out of the sharing and seeing people enjoy it. So now people tell us that they experience this somewhere else. I mean, we see it on social media all the time, and that's just like, it's like another part of the magic that we do it here and we see it happen, but now it can happen elsewhere.
Someone's enjoying it over there.
Yeah, and we'll be on a Zoom tasting with England and Scotland next week, and they will be tasting, and we'll be tasting and talking and connecting with them there. And
amazing.
It's like it's amazing.
Yeah.
It does. It brings the whole world closer together.
Now, speaking of amazing, what is this wine right
so
here?
So this is our high-end Pinot Noir, which is higher up than our Highliner, which is people will find, but you really won't find this one called Perfect Set. The set happens in the spring when the grapes are just starting to form their flowers, and they have to be the crop has to be set. The pollination has to happen to get, and if it's warm and not too windy, and there'll be a set that happens complete, and it won't be all spread out over time, and the crop will be even and even. It's a real important time in a vintage. So we hope for perfect sets, and then we also think that the Hitching Post restaurant was a perfect set in the movie Sideways.
Yes.
So it's kind of taken the same idea as Highliner, except for just the Santa Rita Hills, taking our best barrels of our best vineyards to make our best wine from the Santa Rita Hills. Just like the Highliner is a combination of Santa Rita Hills and Santa Maria Valley for the most part. And our best barrels from Biennacido and Sanford and Benedict Vineyard that come together for the Highliner. And so this is made in smaller production. It'll be Sanford and Benedict and Fiddlesticks Vineyard with just a touch of the Rio Vista Vineyard. So it's mostly this Sanford and Benedict Fiddlesticks.
You're all about the dry. Once again.
Yeah.
And this is, we try to make the Pinots of this level to be focused and a little bit, while they hold back, they develop over time. This is 2017 vintage, and so you have to search for it a little bit. It's not all in your face. So the alcohols aren't too high. They're age-worthy wines that...
it's not a fruit forward.
And it can sit in the bottle for 10 years.
Yeah. We don't recommend it because we figure if you don't drink it, you're not going to buy another one.
Exactly.
Yes.
Come on.
There you go.
Come on. Time's money, people.
There's the marketing genius coming out in
There it is.
And, there's another just marketing blunder. There are styles of wine to be made that are more approachable and more enjoyable in their youth. And they don't age very well, but they're great right now.
Yeah.
Except they don't go with food so well. And it's not a style we like, and we don't make them. So we make these wines that age so long, and sometimes, you barrel age them, and they kind of get round and delicious, and you put them in bottle, and then they lock up and don't show their potential for a year, or they take a long time in the glass to evolve to start to show you what's there. So you kind of know it's there because you saw it in barrel and you followed it right along, and you have to wait this period of time, and then they go through their ups and downs of one day for a couple months they'll show really well, and then they kind of go hiding again.
Sure.
It's crazy what happens.
It is.
with wine.
Would these be good decanting wines?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not for young Pinot Noir that's made this way. They could be decanted or left in the glass for a while. I tend to look at them just straight out of the bottle. I often let wine sit around for 3 or 4 days and see them tomorrow. I'll come back to this wine and I'll have seen it evolve and change, and it gives me an idea of maybe what's going to happen in a year or two. So almost every day that you follow the wine is a year later, and our wines have a tendency to not spoil and develop.
I would imagine because they're low in tannins, right?
No, well, the high in acidity, the low pH, there's something, and it's a measurable thing about wine. Its ability to absorb oxygen. Because if oxygen is around wine, there's these bacteria, acetobacter, that change the alcohol into vinegar. So when wines turn to vinegar, which is the natural process, grapes will naturally turn into wine, will naturally turn into vinegar.
Yeah.
There's a process.
We arrest that
Right.
whole thing and keep it as wine. But if wine has an ability to absorb oxygen, then that oxygen isn't available to make the acetobacter make it into vinegar. So while we see that the wines evolve towards vinegar, volatile acidity, it's sort of a progression that they're not bad, because this volatile acidity is measured, something that we measure and follow, is a part of every wine. And it's an essential part of the wine. It gives aromatics and a roundness and kind of sweetness until it becomes sour vinegar. There's this evolution.
There's a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our wines will sit a week and continue to evolve, which tells me that they're going to evolve for years in the bottle.
Wow.
That's
Before we wrap up, if I was to write a book or do a documentary, it would be called The Man Under the Pith Helmet. And you just got to tell me about your hat.
well, the health department decided in the 90s that you have to wear hats in the kitchen or hairnets, and we all had kind of long hair still. And my wife worked at a leather store in Sawbank here, First Street Leather, great store, a great hat store. And she brought all these different hats for me to wear. I had a button-down golfer's hat, a riding hat, but the pith helmet was the one that was the coolest.
It is.
And the one that people liked the most. So it became the hat
Your
that I would
trademark.
always
It's brilliant.
use. So it's been 30 years that I've been wearing this over the grill. It's practical because it's made out of paper, and it's cool, and I did it over a hot job. Then it became my winemaking hat because I was doing more winemaking than I was chefing. So, and I wore it in winemaking too.
It looks great on you. I mean, it fits perfectly. The pith helmet.
Yeah, you wear it for 30 years, you kind of grow into it, I think.
So how does someone our 3 listeners that are listening,
Yeah.
how do they find you? How do they order your wines? I know we're in Buellton, but give us some contact information so we can, our three listeners can find you.
So if you go to hitchingpost2.com, or even simpler, hp2bbq.com, you'll find our menus, and hpwines.com will get you to the wine side, but they're all kind of connected. Hitchingpost2.com. If you're ever up in the Santa Barbara region, Santa Barbara's a wonderful beach town, but over the hill here is beautiful wine country in the St. Eds Valley, which is where Buellton is. And we have, of course, wonderful dinner, reservations suggested. Our lunch and wine tasting room right next to the restaurant are open 5 days a week in the afternoons, 11:30 to 4 o'clock. So we invite people to come up. It's a beautiful escape from urban areas of California. We're just a couple hours north.
Beautiful. The tasting room and the outside tables overlook this gorgeous little valley. It sits up. It's perched up. It's
great,
a great day.
cheeseburger only on Wednesday or something.
No,
Well,
Wednesday.
the restaurant does them Wednesday and Thursday nights, but we do burgers every day.
Do you?
That we're open at the lunch.
At the lunch. Wow,
yeah,
that's good
so,
to know.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's hamburgers, cheeseburgers, steak sandwiches, chicken,
Quesadilla.
lunch salads,
And Pinot,
quesadillas,
and Pinot,
of course
and
the
Pinot.
artichoke we
And
can
wine,
have,
and wine,
and
wine.
all the wine.
All the wine to pair with it.
And then in distribution in grocery stores, how far west or east do you
Or international.
or go with your?
Well, we're mostly in California. We do sell in 15 states, but it's hard to get grocery store placements anywhere else. So we're strong in Southern California and through the Vons, Albertsons, Pavilions, where are our biggest customers, and a lot of our wine moves through that. But over in the Palm Springs area, I think we're at Stater Brothers.
That's where we're from. That's where we get you.
And I don't know. We're in a lot of wine shops, and of course we encourage people to join our wine club because you get 20% discount and a minor commitment to buy 3 bottles 3 times a year. So it's real easy, and you get access to all of our wines.
And that's international. The wine.
Yeah.
Can you ship wines internationally?
We do a little bit of international, but mostly in where I think we're in about 12 states that we ship to, but we don't ship to every one of them. The regulations
Yes.
are, and it's a little hard to go international, but we do sell wine to Denmark and to Scotland and England and Japan.
Denmark doesn't surprise me because Solvang is all about the Danes.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's
Yes.
been great sitting here talking to you and finding out more about you, about the restaurant, about your delicious wines.
Your
and
family.
We encourage everybody to come on out and enjoy a great meal at Hitching Post with some great wine.
Thanks. Thank you.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!